Hi, good morning, and welcome to What's Going On. I'm Peggy Pollenberg. And this morning, I'm very happy and pleased to welcome an old friend and neighbor and Hudsonian and just great all-around guy, Peter Flint. How are you, Peter?
Fine. How you doing, Peggy?
And Peter is an incredible actor, director, producer, coach. He teaches... he just does a million different things. Am I saying this all right? And he's someone who's been around the theater industry for, I would guess, how many years? I don't know how many years.
Oh, 40, 35, something.
And he has, I'm going to let him talk because he's just has a fascinating background and life. And tell us how you started. I mean, obviously you were interested in this from the time you were a young man.
No, actually not. I grew up in Minnesota, and I grew up in a very small rural farming community and worked on farms and did all that sort of thing. And I was not a very good student in high school, and very well almost didn't get through and all that stuff, and laughed us off, and who did, and had no intention of going to college or anything like that, and got out of high school on the skin of my teeth, but I did have something going on inside about I knew that I just was not meant to be in this little place.
A farmer.
Yeah, and I had to, and there was nothing else around, so I knew that I just had to get out. So I left, and I just went on a bus and had a sack full of apples and chocolate chip cookies from my mother's kitchen, and
off you went.
Off I went to Seattle, and I just thought Seattle was a good place to go, and I could always work. I was a hard worker, and so I got there, and I got a job right away, and I worked for a bit, and then I went up and down the coast and decided to join the Navy, and went into the Navy and spent 4 years there during the early part of Vietnam. And came out of that, and while I was there, I was a medic, and so I took some training, and I scored very.
You didn't go to Vietnam.
Well, I was very involved in air vacuuming wounded out from Vietnam. Midway Island was my starting point, and so I was in critical work a lot.
But not in combat.
Not in
zones.
combat. No, I was in. We would fly into combat zones and fly out the wounded and things like that. So
that's amazing. I never knew that.
we did that kind of work, and then I got through that and decided I could go to college because I did very well in these exams and stuff, and had to beg this college to let me come there and just let me try it, let me in, and they did, and I spent 4 years in college, and I traveled around a lot going to college because I was very restless after my military experience.
But you were studying like medicine? Or?
No, that was a possibility, and I studied that, and then I actually went into the seminary for a while and did a stint there. I really kind of wanted to go and be a monk, and my father, who was not a Catholic, said, well, why don't you just try the local seminary for a while? So I did that. And after a year, they asked me to leave because I began to organize the students, and that wasn't particularly their stuff. So I don't want to get through this quickly.
You were unionizing.
Yeah, I was unionizing in the seminary.
Seminarians.
Right, and they didn't think this was a good idea, so they thought maybe I should leave. And which I did, but my major in college was philosophy. I was just very interested in all sorts of knowledge, and that was my pursuit. Got into a play my senior year in college, and the rest is history, because that's when all the lights went on and all the bells went off and all that stuff. So I went to New York between my last 2 semesters, and I worked at St. Vincent's as a technician. I just went to every show I could go to see if this was really, because it made no sense to me. It just made no sense at all.
Like,
nothing.
Why, all of a sudden,
it's like, what was?
Do I want to be an actor?
Right, and so I did. And so then after I graduated, I came to New York, and I really started working right away. I had a measure of talent. I had no real training, but I had a measure of talent. But I got commercials, and I got off-Broadway shows, and did all that sort of thing. But then I went through
out of the box.
Yeah, right out of the box, and. But then I hit a period of like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know if this is what I want anymore. So I took a Yugoslavian freighter, and I traveled all through Africa and Yugoslavia and Italy and Spain, and trying to decide what my life goal was and all this stuff, and decided that what the theater was really where I wanted to be. So I came back and I got a scholarship to the American Academy because I realized I needed more training, and I graduated from there.
Now, the American Academy, is that in New York?
Yes, in New York City, American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
So that's kind of like a big deal, right?
Yes, and certainly was a really big deal when I was coming up.
And were there any famous people whose names we would recognize that were in school with you then?
Oh, not in school with me, but it's where Robert Redford came from, and you're asking an older man now, so I can't pull those names out of it. But a lot of people came out of the American Academy.
Now that's different than the what is that acting school that everyone is always touting? That Marlon Brando went to.
Oh, the Actor Studio and all that stuff.
Is that connected?
No, that's not connected at all.
It's
no,
totally
and actually,
okay.
that came into existence after the American Academy is the oldest acting school in the United States. And then certainly other academies came forward and stuff, and there's a lot of places to go and to study acting and stuff. But at the time, it was a really good school, and then I started to work, and I worked as an actor for many, many years, and I did everything a good boy's supposed to do in that field, and did television and film and stage, which was my first love, and all that. And as I got on further, I began to look for my own projects, and worked with Morton DaCosta, who was a very famous director that you would know because he did Music Man, both the stage and the film, Plain and Fancy, No Time for Sergeants, Maggie Flynn, many, many things. And I found a project called Doubles, which was in Connecticut at that time, and persuaded him to take this on, and we brought it to New York and did it on Broadway.
Wow.
And then I acted in that, and I did several. As a matter of fact, my partner and I were on Broadway on the same street, not doing in the same show, but at the same show, but at the same time. And
excuse me.
So then I went on and I did that, and then I directed in Canada and throughout the United States, and an opportunity came up for me to teach at the University of Hartford, which I really did not want to do. I did not want to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine persuaded me to take on these classes at the Hart Music School because they had no music theater program, so they had no acting program. And so I did that, and that just grew and grew and grew. And ultimately, I created the music theater department there and the acting program there, and did that until 1989. Mm-hmm. And then
and now that's an established theater, and it's up and running, and it's very famous.
Yeah, and it's very successful, and they're doing very well without me. And
do they always ever call you up and go, what do we do now?
Well, no, the university doesn't really work that way.
Gone and
But
forgotten.
the groundwork was laid and laid well, and they're very
amazing.
Successful. Yeah,
that's an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah, and then I came. I created my own studio in New York, and I now work with young artists who are preparing to go to college. So I coach a lot of kids who are going from high school from the surrounding states and New York City, getting ready for their auditions for university. I work with well-established artists in helping them move forward in their careers, getting them ready for the next part. And I also work with musicians. I work with opera people. I work with painters, all people who seem to have arrived at a certain stage in their professional life. And
jazz. You're telling me you had a jazz musician who was a
and,
client of yours.
Yeah, and who don't quite understand how they're not moving forward. So, so in a nutshell, that's what I do. And very happily so, too. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we were talking about, which I think is so fascinating about your work, because really any person who's really on this creative quest and is devoted to being an artist of any type, whether they're emerging or established, are dealing with the same kinds of issues in a lot of cases, and are dealing with, how do I get to my feeling? Because that's really what an artist does, is express feeling. an emotion, and either by acting or singing or or dancing or or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and certainly I think everyone can understand getting to a point in your life when it's stuff gets stuck and you just can't move forward. So I think it's like coaching, and I mean I'm sure it's kind of like a combination of psychological work and just work within their what was that word you used before?
The discipline.
Discipline.
Right. Absolutely. And usually what we discover is that that's usually they're just really in their own way. And a lot of it has to do with how they perceive themselves and how they judge themselves and how they look at their work and how they people who are established stuff keep trying to do what they've always done better. They keep trying to do that better. Mm-hmm. And what they have to learn to do is let go of what they've done, trust that everything that they have done has brought them to this time, and to move into to their really unknown parts, the parts that scare them.
Yeah.
Because they know what always worked, what they got kudos for, what they got success on, and then they just want to do that better and better and better.
So they're riding on their own coattails.
Yeah, they're riding on their own coattails. And at some point, the coattails don't work anymore.
But I think every person, I mean, it's like the human condition. I certainly...
In many ways, yeah.
Can you tell us any of the really well-known people, or is that sort of confidential? Have you worked with some like really super famous people?
I'll tell you what people who are super famous that have coaches and that have people like me that work with them, they don't advertise that. They don't say, I'm here because...
so it's really a very confidential kind of relationship.
It's absolutely a very safe relationship.
And it's very one-on-one.
Yes,
so
totally.
It's really like seeing a professional therapist or something like that you're really very
I guess you could put
intimate with your clients.
Yeah, I guess you could put it in that way.
And it's always one-on-one. And
yes, I do have a class that I teach a couple times a year with cold readings, which is how to pick up a script and work immediately with it and bring it to life and things like that. But other than that, yes, it's.
And are you ever hired by? Because Peter says I have so much work, I don't need any more work, because all the actors and the directors and the producers and all the kind of theater professionals all know about Peter Flint's work and what he does. So they pick up the phone and say, so-and-so needs some help with, and I'm assuming it's even things like accents and...
Well, no, I don't, but I do
send
accents. And I do send people with specific problems like that to well-known...
Certain people.
Yes,
people
I do.
who work with accents.
Absolutely, yeah, in the best possible way.
It seems like there are a lot of people that have accents, or they're trying to get rid of an accent, or they're trying to develop the accent for a role.
Yeah, it's like when I work with singers that come in, I don't teach them how to sing. I don't teach them with technique. They have wonderful teachers, and they come in with the most glorious voices you've ever heard in your whole life, but they haven't been able to move forward. Right. And it's usually because they keep trying to do everything they've learned better. And I help them move past that point to the scary stuff, to I haven't moved this far, I haven't worked in this way.
And can you talk about your technique? Obviously this is a process, so it's not like you just come once and it's all fixed.
No, absolutely. And many people come expecting that. They truly do. They come saying, here's the problem, and I'll pay you all this money, and I'll make it go away. And
but
it
it's
is
an
a
ongoing process.
It is an ongoing process, and it's building muscle like everything else.
Yeah.
And it needs exercise and stuff. And if it were a technique, say, that I could just write down, I would write a book.
Right.
But a book is not going to help you.
Right.
A book, what I do isn't going to help you in a book. I could write about my work in a book.
Right.
And it might be interesting to a few people, who knows. But it's not going to benefit you to come and read what I have to say about your inspiration and all that stuff.
And so how do you work? Let's say somebody comes to you. We'll make up a hypothetical.
All right. Okay. You be the hypothetical.
Okay, I'm an actress, and would it be if you were particularly loved to get a certain role or something like that, you knew that this role was out there, or you were going to an audition for a certain role that you really, 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 really wanted to get? Would something like that occur?
That would occur and stuff, but and I certainly would work with this person because I have like quick ways of like getting to stuff, but isn't really
That's not your ongoing.
That's not the ongoing thing,
Okay.
sure. But say you came to me and said, I have a couple of monologues and they're not working anymore, and I don't know what's happening. I'm not getting the audition. I'm not getting the callbacks. It's not happening anymore.
Okay.
So I have them bring what they have, and then I have them do that for me, and I evaluate that, and we do an analysis on that. And what I almost always spot is that they're very good and they're wonderfully talented, but they're very safe and they're very predictable. And so what I do then is we'll start with, say, a monologue, or we'll start with a song, and then we'll break that down very specifically and get to how they're affected by that, what this feels like, where this needs to go. And then they start to do this on a very small scale. And then it grows and it grows and it grows until they're able to actually surrender and give up, and then it transcends itself. And that scares them, because it's about giving up control. Any artist, whether you're a painter or not, if it's very controlled and sure and perfect, it's not going anywhere. I mean, it's beautiful and we can appreciate it aesthetically, but we are not moved emotionally. And technically, absolutely brilliant.
I mean, I so many times hear people sing, and I think, because I was trained as a singer for a long time, and I hear people sing, and I say, wow, they're great. They can hit every note. It sounds beautiful, but there's no feeling. I'm not getting emotion from it.
We're not moved.
We're not moved.
Right. And the artist is here to move us. Whether we agree with that movement, or whether these people come wanting to be good. Yeah. And what I teach them to be is bad, which is taking that step out to where you don't know if this is good, because their idea of good already defines them in a way that says,
they're kind of locked
into pleasing what's ever listening, who's ever watching, who's ever doing this, and they want to do it really good for them. And that doesn't make any sense. It makes sense for our own safety, like, I'm going to learn how to do this, and I'm going to really be good at it. And I want to do this model, I want to do it good. Then when you do that, you've locked it into a place where it can't move, it has no air, and certainly is not emotional in a way that moves us. And so I help them to go past that, to give up the control. And to
Do you ever sort of make them do something like, if they're doing their favorite monologue? I assume that actors sort of doing auditions all the time. They kind of have a little repertoire of things that they do for producers and directors. And,
they have songs,
backers.
They have books, they have whole things.
But do you ever take somebody and say, okay, I want you to do, Streetcar Named Desire or something, or take them out of, or take them to make them do something that's like a very emotional, or an angry, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
it's something that
usually
expresses something.
Yeah, they come in with things that already have that, but everything that's emotional, and whether it's angry or whether it's passionate or sexy or whatever it is, it's all very well defined, and they're not in their own revelation of what it's about, and I help them to go to that. People come in with their repertoire. I usually take them away from it, because they're very set on this. They know it's very into them, and they know how that's supposed to go. So I take them to other work, and then we come back to their original work, and we start to work on that in a different way. Yeah.
And do you ever just have somebody come to you that just is a really bad actor?
Well,
and
yes, sure.
What? Don't quit your day job.
This is a sticky wicket, because there are people who come in acting bad who are very talented. And I try to discern that which I feel, and it's only my own experience that I have to bring to the table to make that judgment. And oftentimes they're talented and just have had no way of getting to their real talent or trusting it. When someone comes in that is truly in a fantasy world and it's just not there, I usually steer them in some direction. I usually don't say,
like
get the hell out of this
school.
Yeah. Well, some other school, usually liberal arts, so that they can explore other avenues, because there are people who come in who are not particularly suited to, say, the stage as a singer or an actor or anything else, but often become writers, become lighting designers, become stage designers, become involved in theater in many other ways. So you don't want to close that off. You want to keep the field of creativity open to them. It's just trying to move them in another direction.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know?
Now, do you work with writers also?
Yes, I do. I work with writers in this sense, that there are people who are writing their own shows and writing their own material and stuff, and they come to me, and I'm working with several of them right now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So is it like, do you do things, I'm assuming something like, they're obviously creating characters and their characters are moving the story forward. Is it like character issues? Because it seems like a lot of writers have a problem really defining characters in a way that, you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. And I actually don't really work with writer. I haven't worked with, and I certainly could, with someone who's saying, I have this novel and I can't figure out
or
where it's going.
Or
well, screenplays, yes, and things like that, and especially people who are developing their own pieces. For instance, right now I'm working with a woman who is writing about her life, really, and she grew up with deaf parents, and moving through that with her has been a wonderful experience for her, but it's been a wonderful experience as well with me to be with someone to help them open up to the realities of what went on there. And it's fascinating because this is not a story about deaf people, but it's about her.
Right.
A hearing person who was within this home.
Her parents were also living.
Yeah, they were also living. Yeah. And she's still living.
That's it.
Remarkably.
Now, is that going to be a play? That sounds like a fascinating play.
Yeah, it's going to be. It'll be a one woman piece.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So the parents will be not in the on stage, obviously.
No.
So, that's interesting.
No. And it's remarkable in that
interesting.
its take on it is that it was not a happy experience. It was a terrible experience for her.
Yeah.
A very difficult experience for her.
Well, must have been.
And so it's getting to the things that block us from moving forward, the secrets we keep, and being open to as artists. We just cannot do it. We must be
so
open to our urges and
people.
what motivates us to.
Do people sort of like break down and sob and cry and stuff?
You want to know all the dirt, don't you?
I want all the details.
Well, what do you mean as they're going through this sort of thing?
When you're working with them, I would assume
oh, sure, they're affected by their work, sure. And oftentimes
but also getting deeper and deeper into their own psyche.
And it oftentimes the very things that block them,
Yeah.
My own partner, Scott, created his own show called Buck Naked, which was done.
We should mention his whole name.
Scott Robertson.
Very well-known actor on the New York theater scene.
Right.
A wonderful, wonderful man.
Yeah.
Great singer.
Yeah, wonderful performer, great actor. He's my partner of 30 years, and he did his own show, which was one of the top 5 in the tri-state area down in North Carolina, and I was getting ready to bring it to New York and all that sort of thing. But he had to go through the same process and unveil all the things that stop us from moving forward.
Do you find it hard to kind of work with him on his stuff? I would think living together is sort of like,
well, you can go
right.
Sometimes. You can go one of two ways with this. You can either say you have your life, I have my life in the theater, and and let's hope we meet in the middle and let's celebrate each other, which we do all the time. But early on, we established a relationship in which we were pretty critically honest with each other about each other's work. Mm-hmm. Which, when you can take that from your partner, from the love of your life,
mm-hmm.
You can take it from anybody. Because the minute that your partner is one that says, "What were you thinking?"
That's gotta hurt.
That you don't, divide up the furniture and leave. And so we have established a really, really good process of that. And I do coach him, and we
I would
work
think it
well
would be
together.
fantastic. if that was a possibility, I would think it would be fantastic for him or for both of you to actually be able to share. That kind of interaction, because it's so interesting, and your knowledge and his knowledge. I would think that
absolutely. I work with someone of his caliber of talent and ability and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're very facile with it now because we know each other so well. So it doesn't take a lot of fighting to get through to the point.
No punches are being thrown or anything.
No, or resistance, that sort of thing. Yeah.
And are you are you didn't you tell me you were directing something in California?
Yeah, I'm leaving.
Upcoming.
Yeah, I'm leaving for LA in March. I often go to LA to do shows, and what I do in the show is I don't direct them. I come in after the director has directed, and this director also happens to be in the show, and it's a young rock show, and Swagwin and I work on all the human dynamics and make sure that everything is the truth and everything is happening and everything is right, and I
sort of like a real behind the scenes consultant within
the whole thing, yeah.
Because I mean,
yeah, because he's a great director. Michael Leon's a great director and stuff, but he hasn't come to me works just to work on the truth of the dynamics and make sure that they move forward in a way that's open, free, and first time.
We've got 30 seconds.
Okay. It's going fast, hasn't it?
It really went fast. Thank you so much. Peter Flint has been here this morning talking to us about. He's an actor, director, teacher, coach, professor, wonder, all kinds of stuff. He coaches and does all these wonderful things
your car
in New York, in New York City, and also here in Hudson, New York. So, thank you so much, Peter.
Peggy, thank you for having me. It was great.
Thanks.